Hey guys, tonight we're stepping softly into a morning unlike any other. In a medieval village, just as the sun begins to stretch its golden fingers across fields of amber wheat, you can almost feel the dew tickling your toes as you follow the villagers out of their timbered homes, the air crisp and fragrant with hay and freshly turned soil. The aroma of damp earth mingles with the faint sweetness of ripening apples and the comforting scent of smoke from wood. Fires already stoked. Imagine the clatter of wooden buckets, the shuffle of strolladon boots, and the occasional crow of a rooster announcing that the day of the harvest festival has officially begun. Honestly, you probably wouldn't last a day here without tripping over a pitchfork or confusing a cow for a friend, but that's exactly why we're here, isn't it? So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, leave a comment telling me what time it is, where you are, and where you're watching from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step carefully across the muddy path leading from the village square toward the fields, noticing that every home is alive with preparations. Women sweep courtyards with stiff brooms, throwing straw over the ground to dry it after the morning mist, while men heft baskets overflowing with golden grains, the weight of the harvest pressing down almost as much as the anticipation of celebration. The air is punctuated by the occasional laughter of children chasing chickens, and you can't help but notice the way the village dog pads along behind, tail wagging, sniffing at everything as if it too is eager for the festival. There's a rhythm here, a quiet music made of shuffling feet, creaking wheels, and murmured greetings. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you remember the sunblock made from crocodile dung your science teacher once mentioned. This village probably has a version of that, and you shiver and laugh at the thought. By the edge of the wheat field, you watch as villagers gather to inspect the crops. The stalks sway gently in the morning breeze, a golden sea whispering secrets of past festivals and long-forgotten rituals. Elders murmur to each other, nodding gravely at the ripest sheaves, and you notice the strange little charms tucked into the bundles of wheat-tiny carved figures of birds and beasts, meant to protect the harvest from mischievous spirits. Historians still debate the exact purpose of these charms, whether they were purely symbolic, or if villagers truly believed in their protective magic. You lean closer, the smell of fresh straw filling your senses, and it's easy to imagine that, in this moment, the line between reality and myth feels delightfully blurred as the sun climbs a little higher. You join the villagers carrying baskets to the central square. There's a playful competition among the young men, racing to see who can deliver the heaviest load without spilling a single ear of grain. You can almost hear the echoes of laughter bouncing off the timbered walls, and you might catch yourself comparing it to modern-day grocery runs, though thankfully with fewer squeaky carts and checkout lines. The villagers' efforts are methodical yet tinged with merriment, each step a part of an ancient choreography that has been repeated for generations. And you, walking alongside, feel an odd comfort in the predictability of it all the way. The world seems to pause just enough for everyone to take a deep breath and savor the season. Moving closer to the heart of the village, you notice tables being set up for the feast. Wooden planks are smoothed, benches arranged in welcoming lines, and the smell of roasting meat and fresh bread begins to fill the air. You watch as women fold herbs into pies, sprinkle spices into stews, and occasionally glance over their shoulders to scold a playful child for helping a little too enthusiastically. Some recipes include ingredients that make you squint in surprise, tiny nuts and berries that seem almost magical in their rarity. And you wonder if the village really believes they hold secret powers. Historians still debate which of these ingredients were everyday staples and which were considered talismans for good fortune. You find yourself smiling at the thought that even centuries ago, people shared this mix of pragmatism and whimsy, balancing survival with small bursts of enchantment. By mid-morning, the air is alive with anticipation. Villagers carry garlands, woven from wildflowers, while others hang mystical symbols above doorways. You notice carvings of animals, strange geometric patterns, and little charms dangling from beams, intended to bring luck or chase away bad spirits. There's a rhythm to the decorations, an almost musical cadence in the way colors and textures interplay. You can feel the soft brush of petals against your fingers as you help string a garland, and can't help but think how different it is from today's perfectly packaged festivals, where everything is mass-produced and shiny. The charm of imperfection, the whisper of something older and mysterious, that's what gives this morning its magic. Walking through the square, you overhear whispers of what will come, dances around the maypole, games testing skill and balance, and feasts that will stretch from noon into evening. Each villager seems to know their role intuitively, as if the choreography has been etched into their bones over generations. You might find yourself wondering how such precise traditions survive so long, and why some details have faded into legend while others remain vibrant. And as you take a deep breath of crisp autumn air, mingled with the scent of smoke and baked bread, you realize that this is more than a festival, it's a living story. A bridge between centuries, quietly inviting you to step into its rhythm. Even the smallest details catch your attention. The way a straw hat tilts just so, the slight wobble of a cart laden with apples, or the soft laughter of a child discovering a hidden charm tucked among the grain. You notice that every gesture has purpose, even those that seem purely playful, and it dawns on you that in these tiny acts, the villagers are preserving a world that is simultaneously practical, whimsical, and mysterious. You think again about the crocodile dung sunblock, the odd ingredients in pies, the charms in the wheat, and you chuckle softly, realizing that the past is filled with eccentricities that are strangely comforting when experienced through someone else's eyes. By the time the sun reaches a golden peak, the village is fully awake and humming. You find yourself leaning against a fence, watching the layers of movement, children darting between adults, dogs weaving through the crowd, elders exchanging knowing glances. The scene is alive with a gentle chaos, perfectly balanced, like a symphony of mundane and magical elements. You feel a certain satisfaction just being present, imagining yourself as part of a centuries-old ritual, participating in a mystery that blends work, play, superstition, and celebration in a way that feels timeless. Historians still debate exactly how these mornings unfolded in different villages. But standing here, you don't need the answer, you just feel it. And so, as the morning stretches lazily into the afternoon, you step back slightly, taking in the panorama of fields, homes, and people alive with purpose and wonder. The festival has begun, though the dances, chants, and stories are still to come. For now, there is the satisfaction of preparation, the quiet thrill of shared anticipation, and the gentle, pervasive sense that you are witnessing something both ordinary and enchanted. You may never live through a morning like this yourself, but in this moment, walking among villagers, feeling the earth beneath your feet and the crisp air on your cheeks, It's easy to imagine that you could almost belong here. You step forward from the village square, baskets now empty in your hands, but your curiosity fully laden as the real work begins, gathering the autumn crops. The morning sun has climbed a little higher, bathing the fields in a golden haze, and you notice how the wheat and barley sway in gentle waves, almost as if whispering secrets about the season. You lean closer to the stalks, brushing your fingers along their feathery tops, and can almost feel the weight of centuries pressing softly beneath your palms. Children dart past you, laughing and squealing as they chase stray chickens, and you wonder briefly if any of them will end up chasing a goose or accidentally carting off a scarecrow head like a trophy bee, 'cause in a village like this, it wouldn't be entirely surprising. Villagers move rhythmically through the fields, sickles glinting in the sunlight as they cut swathes of wheat and barley with practiced precision. You join in, feeling the blade slice smoothly through the stalks, the soft thud of each bundle landing in the basket, the earthy scent filling your nostrils like a comforting, slightly muddy perfume. This is a familiar scene in countless harvests across medieval Europe, one that almost anyone can picture. The steady hum of communal labor, punctuated by laughter and shouted encouragements. And yet, as you work, you notice small charms tied around some of the sheaves, tiny carved animals, or little cloth dolls meant to ensure a bountiful harvest. You might raise an eyebrow, but a local child explains seriously that these keep field spirits content, and somehow you can't help but smile at the mix of earnest belief and playful superstition. Historians still debate how widespread these charms were and whether villagers really trusted them or just liked the idea of their crops being watched over by tiny mystical helpers. As the baskets fill, the playful rivalries begin. Two teenagers nudge each other gently, each trying to deliver more wheat to the square than the other. You notice the subtle tactics, a hidden handful of oats tucked under one's arm, a deliberately slow step to let the opponent carry the heavier load first, and the occasional mischievous toss of straw to distract a rival. You can't help but chuckle, thinking that these competitions are the medieval equivalent of office co-workers racing to finish. TPS reports first, or maybe more like a slow-motion grocery store dash with no checkout lanes. You step carefully to avoid tripping over a basket of barley, reminding yourself that unlike modern races, here the prize is mostly pride, laughter, and maybe a tart apple from the elder's stash. You wander toward a vegetable patch next, where turnips, carrots, and cabbages grow in neat rows, each plant heavy with the season's bounty. Villagers pull the roots gently, shaking off clumps of soil, and you notice how they handle the vegetables almost tenderly, like delicate treasures. A woman grins at you, teasing, "Try not to eat all the carrots before they reach the square." And you laugh softly, thinking that honesty and hunger have always been companions through time. You observe the subtle coordination. One person cuts the stalks, another bundles them, and a third carries them to the waiting carts. It's easy to see how this communal effort strengthens bonds, how even small moments of shared labor create laughter, trust, and the occasional gentle squabble over who's the fastest dot between the bundles of wheat and vegetables. You spot a lesser-known tradition, a single stalk of rye left untouched in the center of the field, known as the spirit stalk. Villagers explain that this was thought to appease the field spirits, ensuring that no misfortune visited the harvest or the people who labored for it. You run your fingers along it, feeling the soft resilience of the stalk, and wonder if it's just clever superstition or a little magical thinking that made the long, hard days more bearable. Maybe the spirits weren't watching at all, but the villagers certainly were, keeping a lively eye on each other's playful antics and gentle mischief. Historians still debate the origin and exact meaning of the spirit stalk, whether it was a widespread belief or unique to certain regions. But in the moment, it feels wonderfully mysterious. You pause briefly to catch your breath, noticing the sounds around you, the creak of wooden carts, the scrape of sickles against stalks, the distant bray of a donkey, and the soft murmur of villagers exchanging jokes. You hear someone joking about how these medieval fields are the original fitness centers. Except here, the weights are sacks of wheat and your personal trainer is a scolding grandmother wielding a broom. You suppress a laugh and continue, your own basket brimming with produce, realizing that part of the charm is in the gentle chaos. The way everyone moves together, yet somehow individually, creating a rhythm that feels as natural as breathing. Even as the sun climbs higher, there's a peculiar joy in the minor rivalries and shared laughter. You watch a man accidentally drop a basket of turnips and mutter under his breath, only for a nearby teenager to quip, "Careful, or the turnips might take revenge." You grin at the playful warning, thinking about how humor has always been humanity's companion, whether in a medieval field or in your modern, slightly less muddy kitchen. Children stumble and giggle, adults tease, and the occasional animal wanders into the scene, adding unpredictability and charm. Historians still debate how exactly villagers balanced work and play, whether some traditions were purely symbolic or essential for communal morale. But it's clear that laughter was as vital as labor as the morning stretches on. You notice patterns emerging, bundles of barley arranged in neat stacks, wheat sheaves lined along the edges of the field, and vegetables carried carefully toward the square. Villagers exchange winks and playful nudges, as if acknowledging a silent understanding. This is serious work, yes, but it's also meant to be joyful. You stop to help a neighbor lift a particularly heavy basket, feeling the strain in your arms and the warmth of shared effort. It's in these small interactions, these fleeting moments of connection, that you realize the festival is as much about people as it is about crops. The magic isn't only in charms or rituals, it's in the laughter, cooperation, and gentle teasing that fills the fields. Finally, as the baskets are emptied at the village square, you take a step back and observe the scene. The golden grains gleaming in the sunlight, the vegetables piled high like miniature mountains, and the villagers wiping brows, laughing, and exchanging quiet congratulations. You feel the satisfaction of having been part of something timeless, a communal rhythm that has repeated for centuries. You can almost hear the echoes of past harvests mingling with the present, carrying whispers of forgotten games, playful rivalries, and hidden charms. And somewhere in the background, a child quietly pretends to lead a parade of chickens, as if reminding everyone that joy and whimsy are as essential as hard work. The morning winds down with a soft, contented hum across the fields. You notice the sun glinting off the dew still clinging to wheat stalks, and the gentle sway of barley. In the breeze, the villagers pause to share sips of mead, wiping hands on aprons and laughing about who tripped or dropped the largest bundle. You lean against a fence, watching the scene, and can't help but think how slightly absurd yet utterly charming it all is, reminding you that humans have always found ways to turn labor into celebration. Historians still debate the extent to which these playful rivalries influenced the community, whether they were integral to morale or just a happy coincidence. But standing here, the answer seems delightfully obvious. You are part of a living, breathing story, a dance of work and joy, past and present, that carries the village forward into the festival yet to come. And as you gather your own final bundle and feel the satisfying weight in your arms, you glance back at the fields stretching behind you, golden and proud. The sun is higher now, casting long, soft shadows and illuminating the day's effort. You notice a stray cat weaving through the crops, a silent observer of centuries-old traditions, and you can't help but wonder what stories it would tell. If it could speak, you carry your harvest toward the square, feeling connected to every hand, every laugh, every charm tucked into the wheat, knowing that the next phase of the festival, the dances, rituals, and stories by firelight. You walk from the village square, your arms still carrying the satisfying weight of freshly gathered crops, and notice the subtle transformation of the homes and streets. Every doorway seems to breathe with life, adorned with garlands of autumn. Leaves, ribbons dyed in deep ochres and ambers, and clusters of wildflowers that smell faintly of honey and earth. The villagers move gracefully from house to house, tying knots, weaving greenery, and occasionally glancing at you with a mischievous grin, as if daring you to make a crooked knot in their perfectly arranged displays. You try not to, of course. You don't want to be the medieval equivalent of the person who hangs the mistletoe upside down at Christmas. The scene is familiar enough for anyone who has witnessed a festival. Homes decorated to celebrate abundance, streets alive with color and scent, a community that takes pride in both labor and aesthetics. You run your fingers along the smoothness of freshly tied garlands, the soft scratch of ribbon, and the brittle rustle of dried leaves. It is sensory indulgence, soothing in the way that only careful, deliberate decoration can be. Children scamper past, weaving between the adults and leaving tiny handprints on the freshly dusted straw mats, while a cat stalks a loose ribbon like a lion on the prowl. You can't help but chuckle, thinking that every era has its chaos agents. Some are four-legged, some are sugar-high children, and some, of course, are adults who insist on perfect symmetry. As you continue, you notice symbols painted on doorframes and carved into beams, stars, crescents, sun motifs, and curious spirals that seem to invite mystery. These mystical motifs are a common feature across medieval villages during harvest season, meant to protect the household, bring good fortune, or honor spirits of the land. You lean closer to a carved spiral, brushing your fingers against its worn edges, and imagine the generations who have done the same. But there's more to it than meets the eye. In some villages, these motifs were believed to correspond with specific constellations or seasonal cycles, almost like a celestial GPS, guiding good luck to the right house. Historians still debate whether the designs had practical, symbolic meaning or were mostly decorative, though. Standing here, it's hard not to feel a shiver of enchantment at the thought that someone might be watching over these homes from beyond you. Pass by a small girl carrying a basket of garland flowers, carefully placing each sprig into a wreath. She pauses, looks at you with wide eyes, and whispers, "This one keeps the bad spirits from sneezing on our bread." You stifle a laugh and nod solemnly, because who are you to argue with a child and a belief that seems oddly reasonable? At the moment, a little further along, you notice a man balancing a ladder with one hand while dangling a cluster of bells and tiny charms with the other. He wobbles dangerously, and you imagine him trying out for a medieval circus, though his audience is strictly limited to the neighborhood cats. Light jokes aside, it's fascinating to see how practical tasks, lifting ladders, tying knots, arranging flowers, intertwine with symbolic gestures. turning every action into a ritual of subtle magic. The village square is particularly enchanting. Now, the air fragrant with flower petals, herbs, and the faint smokiness of a distant hearth. You watch as garlands are strung from post to post, banners wave gently in the breeze, and little wooden figurines are tucked into corners, each carrying a story or superstition you'll never fully know. Here's a lesser-known fact. In some regions, villagers would place small mirrors in their decorations, believing the reflections could confuse spirits or bring double fortune to the household. You can't help but imagine the first person who thought, yes, a mirror will definitely fool a ghost. And you grin at the inventiveness, realizing that human creativity is timeless, even when applied to mildly eccentric beliefs. A group of teens scuttle past, tossing leaves in the air and competing to see who can land the most perfectly balanced on a garland without falling. You chuckle, realizing that even in medieval times, teenagers had the exact same energy you remember from high school hallways. Though here the stakes are slightly higher if a basket of herbs tips over. Another light joke passes your mind. If Instagram existed, these kids would be influencers by noon, posting harvest vibes and leafless challenge, and you shake your head at the thought of history gone viral. Yet somehow, these playful rivalries enhance the magic, making decoration feel alive and communal rather than merely ornamental. As you move closer to the elder's house, you notice a cluster of tiny charms hidden among the garlands, a carved fox, a miniature sheaf of wheat, a painted spiral on a leaf. These charms are meant to honor specific deities or spirits, ensuring a prosperous harvest and keeping misfortune at bay. Some are common, some incredibly rare, and some so small you'd miss them entirely if you weren't looking closely. Historians still debate the exact significance of each charm, whether they served a purely protective role or were intended as subtle reminders of the community's shared beliefs. But as you peer at them, the mystery feels tangible, almost as if the air itself hums with their quiet power. You notice subtle humor woven into the decorations as well. A scarecrow wears a crooked hat. A banner shows a sheep with 3 legs instead of 4, and a garland hangs slightly lopsided, as if the creator winked at anyone paying attention. You smile softly. Centuries ago, villagers clearly had the same love of little absurdities as you do now, blending reverence and levity in every gesture. Even the meticulous weaving of leaves into a protective wreath cannot hide the fact that someone probably laughed while doing it. Just like you might now, imagining a ghost tripping over a ribbon or a mischievous squirrel stealing a flower. Passing through the narrow lanes, you notice how each street tells a story, some lined with hanging herbs that scent the evening air, others adorned with carved wooden animals, symbolic of luck, fertility, or playful warning. You brush your fingertips against the rough-hewn beams, feeling the texture of generations of hands that have done exactly the same thing during countless harvests. Here, the village transforms into a living tapestry, every corner infused with color, scent, and the subtle, enchanting energy of centuries-old belief. Historians still debate the exact origins of some of these decorative customs, whether they evolved from pagan rites or emerged spontaneously from communal creativity. But standing here, the answer doesn't really matter. The effect is mesmerizing. By late morning, the streets are alive with soft laughter, gentle chiding, and occasional exclamations of "watch the garland." You find yourself ducking under low-hanging wreaths, smiling at the persistent levity of village life. Children chase after stray petals, Adults exchange winks and knowing nods. And you realize that decorating is not simply an aesthetic act, it is social glue, a way of intertwining labor, belief, and joy. You pause to tie a stray ribbon yourself, marveling at how satisfying it feels to contribute to this quiet spectacle. Even the smallest misstep, a crooked knot, a dropped flower adds character rather than ruin, reminding you that perfection is not the goal. Harmony is. As the morning wanes, the village appears fully transformed, every doorway, street, and corner humming with life, ritual, and enchantment. The garlands shimmer in the sunlight, symbols glint softly from beams, and the faint aroma of herbs and flowers drifts through the air. You stand back and take it all in, noticing how decoration has moved beyond mere visual delights. It's a form of storytelling, a bridge between seasons, generations, and the unseen forces villagers hope to honor. And as you catch sight of a cat batting at a ribbon and a child hiding a tiny charm for luck, you smile, realizing that history, humor, and magic have entwined seamlessly in this moment. With the village beautifully adorned, you feel a sense of quiet accomplishment, the satisfaction of having witnessed and even participated in something both timeless and playful. You are ready, in a sense, for the next stage of the festival, the feasts, the music, and the stories waiting to be shared under the autumn sun and later by firelight. The decorations are not just ornaments, they are invitations, setting the stage for the enchantment yet to come. And as you step lightly through the streets, you sense the heartbeat of centuries flowing gently through this vibrant, whimsical world. You step closer to the heart of the village square, where long wooden tables wait patiently under the morning sun, anticipating the bounty they will soon hold. The villagers are busy at work, chopping, stirring, and kneading, the air rich with aromas that make you want to tiptoe over and take a tiny, absolutely imperceptible taste. You catch a whiff of roasting meats, a sweet tang of honey and apples simmering in cauldrons, and the spicy warmth of herbs steeping in steaming pots. Honestly, you might not survive a modern diet after this. Your stomach is already performing a small, anticipatory somersault just from the smell. Everyone seems to know exactly what to do. Women roll dough for pies while humming quietly. Men carve pumpkins with careful precision, and children carry baskets of nuts and berries, occasionally dropping a few and giggling when they do. It's a scene you could almost predict in any medieval village. Communal preparation of food for the harvest festival, everyone contributing, everyone participating. The repetition of movement, the rolling, stirring, cutting creates a rhythm that is soothing in itself, almost like a quiet melody that hums beneath the clatter of utensils. As you kneel to help, you notice something fascinating. Certain dishes call for secret ingredients that seem both ordinary and magical at the same time. A pinch of dried marigold petals for color, a splash of spiced mead for depth, or a whisper of herbs believed to protect the eater from misfortune. Lesser-known fact, some medieval cooks would even include a few grains of saffron, not for taste, but for symbolic luck. Hidden among the ordinary vegetables, you pause to admire the way a child gently sprinkles petals into a steaming pie, careful not to upset the balance, and think that these small touches are what transform a simple meal into a ritual. Historians still debate whether these ingredients were truly considered magical, or if they were clever ways to impress neighbors and relatives, but standing here, tasting the air, and watching the care in every hand, the line feels delightfully blurred. You watch as the villagers prepare spiced meads, pouring golden liquid into tall wooden jugs, mixing in honey, cinnamon, cloves, and occasionally a curious bit of juniper berry. Someone jokes that the next batch will either cure a cold or inspire a new dance craze, and you can't help but smile, thinking that humor has always been as vital to medieval life as any herb or spice. The process is oddly mesmerizing. The steady tilt of a jug, the swirl of liquid, the sparkle of honey catching sunlight like tiny captured stars. You dip a finger just slightly to taste, and the sweetness dances across your tongue, making you imagine a festival full of laughter and clinking cups. Nearby, pies and stews bubbled gently over small fires. You lean closer and notice how even the simplest recipes carry layers of intention. One stew includes roasted root vegetables and barley, but with subtle additions like toasted almonds or a dash of rosewater for aroma. Combination that seems almost too refined for rustic simplicity. You catch yourself thinking that medieval villagers might have been secretly sophisticated, balancing practicality with whimsy, and you chuckle softly at the mental image of someone carefully measuring rosewater while a goat strolls across the kitchen floor. Another light joke flits through your mind. If modern chefs tried to recreate this scene, they'd probably insist on gloves, measuring spoons, and a YouTube tutorial, whereas here, it's all instinct, tradition, and a pinch of luck. As you stir a bubbling pot of apple and honey compote, you notice that some ingredients are hidden with symbolic intent. A tiny piece of sugar, some saffron, or even a leaf tucked into a pie might represent fertility, prosperity, or protection. Children giggle as they tuck small charms into dough, convinced that the pies will somehow carry magic into the mouths of festival-goers. You can almost see the sparks of belief glinting in the adult's eyes, to playful acknowledgement that the world is full of unseen patterns, and that small gestures matter more than we often realize. Historians still debate whether these practices were widespread or local quirks, but the atmosphere of enchantment feels universal. You glance at a basket of nuts and berries ready for roasting. A man teases a young girl, claiming she might end up eating all the almonds before they reach the feast. She sticks her tongue out, and you laugh softly, thinking the generational humor hasn't changed much over centuries. Kids have always been cunning little food thieves. Another light joke: if you sneezed near the compote, the villagers might insist it adds extra flavor, a tradition you suspect is purely whimsical. The laughter, subtle teasing, and shared purpose create a quiet harmony that seems as nourishing as the food itself. By mid-morning, the feast begins to take shape. Wooden platters are laden with pies, roasted vegetables, breads, and jugs of mead glinting in the sunlight. You notice patterns in arrangement: pyramids of apples, rows of pies perfectly aligned, bowls of nuts clustered symmetrically, and you realize it's not just about feeding the body, it's about feeding the eye and spirit, making the harvest a visual celebration as well as a culinary one. The subtle artistry blends with practicality, a hallmark of medieval ingenuity. You move to help with a large pie, feeling the warmth from the oven and the comforting weight of the dough in your hands. Children giggle nearby as they attempt to sprinkle cinnamon without creating a cloud that leaves everyone sneezing. You smile at their determination, remembering that subtle chaos is a constant companion in kitchens across the ages. A whispered joke passes your mind. This is probably what inspired medieval gossip: someone's pie turned out too spicy, someone else dropped a roast, and suddenly the entire village knows your culinary misadventures before lunchtime. The magical air of the kitchen extends to the preparation of spiced meads. Villagers pour liquid carefully, stir with long wooden spoons, and occasionally taste test with exaggerated solemnity, as if the perfect sip will ensure the village's fortune for the coming year. You try a small drop, the warmth of honey and spice rolling over your tongue, and imagine the stories that will unfold during the festival: laughter, games, dancing, and gentle competition. Historians still debate which spices were truly prized for taste and which for symbolic protection, but you don't mind. You savor the mystery as much as the flavor. You notice small flourishes of humor and whimsy in the preparations. A pie shaped like a smiling face, a carved pumpkin that seems to wink at you, and a jug of mead labeled with a playful note reading, "Drink responsibly or dance foolishly." You grin, thinking that humor has always been an ingredient as essential as salt or honey. Every motion, every sprinkle, every stir feels deliberate, yet infused with a light-hearted spirit, the kind that warms hearts more effectively than any fire. By late morning, the tables are ready, gleaming with autumn abundance. You step back and take in the panorama of the feast: golden loaves, steaming pies, spiced meats, vibrant vegetables, and tiny, mysterious touches tucked here and there, waiting to delight and surprise. You feel the gentle hum of anticipation, the shared satisfaction of preparation, and the quiet enchantment that makes this more than just a meal. It is a celebration of labor, magic, and communal joy. Children dart around, sprinkling herbs, whispering secrets to each other, and occasionally making you smile at their clever mischief. You realize that the real feast is not only on the tables, but in the act of preparing together, in the laughter, the subtle teasing, and the gentle chaos that binds everyone in this shared, timeless moment. You step away from the bustling feast preparations, carrying the lingering sense of spiced mead and roasting pies with you, and make your way to the village green. Here, the morning sun casts soft golden light over the cobblestones, illuminating the assembled villagers who gather in a loose, expectant circle. You notice their posture: hands folded, heads bowed, some quietly humming, others whispering last-minute charms. It's the kind of scene almost anyone would recognize: people pausing at the start of a festival to give thanks and seek blessings. But the details, of course, are where the enchantment hides. Children, still slightly sticky from honey and mischievous laughter, stand at the edges, their wide eyes tracking every movement. You find yourself crouching down slightly to match their height, observing a familiar ritual. The village elder raises a small wooden staff carved with spirals, sun symbols, and tiny bells. A hush falls, and the gentle chime rings through the crisp morning air. You notice the subtle variations in posture, the nuanced gestures each villager makes, from tilting heads to tracing symbols on their own doorframes. This is more than pageantry. It's a language of gratitude and hope, a collective weaving of intention into the fabric of the community. A popular, easy-to-imagine moment unfolds, villagers raising their hands toward the sky, offering thanks for the bountiful wheat, barley, and vegetables recently harvested. They murmur prayers, sometimes aloud, sometimes only to themselves, asking for protection, prosperity, and continued fortune. You can almost feel the soft vibrations of their collective voices, a calming rhythm that seems to settle into your bones. Lesser-known fact: in some medieval communities, participants would toss a pinch of wheat or barley into the air as part of the ritual, symbolically returning a portion of the harvest to the earth itself. You reach out your hand, imagining the tiny grains floating softly around you, a gentle reminder that gratitude was tactile, sensory, and celebratory. Historians still debate whether the tossing of grains was purely symbolic, or if it had deeper ritual significance, possibly tied to ancient fertility rites that survived quietly in local custom. You watch a young woman carry a small bowl of water, infused with herbs, sprinkling droplets over the crowd. The scent of rosemary and sage mingles with the lingering aroma of pastries, creating an olfactory tapestry that feels simultaneously grounding and whimsical. A light joke crosses your mind. She looks very serious, but you suspect if someone sneezed mid-sprinkle, the ritual would still be considered valid. Another joke flits by. If modern health inspectors saw this, they'd probably panic. But here, it adds charm rather than concern. The ritual, playful yet sincere, bridges the sacred and the mundane, reminding you that medieval life balanced reverence with the kind of subtle humor you'd find comforting today. Nearby, the elder offers a short chant, invoking protection for the livestock and fertility for the fields. You notice how each villager adapts the gesture to their own abilities. Some kneel deeply, some bow gently, and a few try to copy the elder with exaggerated solemnity, prompting stifled chuckles among the crowd. You smile quietly, appreciating how these small human moments thread humor through ritual, softening the weight of centuries-old custom. Another light joke. Someone accidentally steps on a loose cobblestone, their stumble almost perfectly timed with the chant, and you imagine medieval blooper reels if only cameras had existed. As the ritual continues, you notice the subtle presence of charms tucked into folds of clothing and pockets. Tiny carved symbols of animals, stars, and spirals serve as talismans, quietly amplifying the intent of the ceremony. Lesser-known fact, some villagers believed that carrying a miniature sheaf of wheat or a small bell could amplify one's personal fortune, a practice that seems both practical and slightly mischievous in hindsight. You crouch down to observe, a child peeking out from behind a parent, holding a bell as if it were a precious gem, and your heart softens at the innocence and dedication intertwined with centuries-old belief. Historians still debate whether such charms were considered essential to ritual efficacy, or were whimsical add-ons, but in this moment, the magic feels undeniable. You move closer to the center, noticing the rhythm of the ceremony, chants sprinkled, grains, whispered prayers, and shared laughter. The community forms a subtle choreography, moving almost imperceptibly in harmony. You take a slow breath, inhaling the mixed scents of herbs, baked goods, and autumn leaves, and realize that participation is sensory as much as spiritual. A gentle joke surfaces in your mind. If you tried to copy these movements without prior instruction, you'd likely perform an accidental interpretive dance, worthy of applause or polite confusion. Another joke, the village cat sneaks between legs at the precise moment of blessing, earning a conspiratorial wink from the elder. A smaller ritual unfolds near the village fountain. Water is poured into a basin, and villagers dip their fingers lightly, tracing symbols in the liquid before touching their foreheads. This act, simple in appearance, carries the intent of purification and protection. Lesser-known fact, in certain medieval communities, they believed water touched by multiple hands accumulated collective luck, spreading prosperity and warding off minor misfortunes. You gently follow suit, dipping your fingers and tracing a pattern as if it will carry your own silent hopes into the communal web of goodwill. Historians still debate whether the symbolism was primarily spiritual or also served a practical social function, reinforcing shared responsibility for community welfare. The morning sun climbs higher, casting warm highlights on the villagers' faces, the wooden carvings, and the scattered grains on the cobblestones. You notice how each gesture, though repeated for generations, feels spontaneous, personal, and playful. Children, still sticky from honey and pastry crumbs, wave tiny hands or shake charms, believing in the potency of the ritual even as they giggle. You chuckle softly. Every generation adds a little flair, a little chaos, and perhaps a little humor, because humans haven't changed that much over the centuries. Another light joke. You imagine a medieval version of a reality show, with villagers competing to see who can perform the most dramatic bow without toppling a pumpkin by mid-morning. The ritual winds down. The elder raises the staff one final time, and a collective breath is released, a soft sigh of satisfaction and shared anticipation for the festival to come. Villagers exchange quiet nods, sometimes wiping imaginary sweat from foreheads, as if acknowledging that ceremonial labor, like physical labor, deserves gentle applause. You glance around, noting that the beauty of these morning blessings lies not in perfection, but in participation, in laughter, in intention. The streets are now infused with quiet energy. The air carries the scent of herbs and baked goods. Laughter lingers, and faintly, the charm of enchantment seems to hover. You step back, watching as children chase stray grains of wheat, adults tuck away tiny charms, and the elder smiles knowingly at the subtle chaos around them. Historians still debate the origins and exact meaning of each gesture, but for now, it does not matter. You feel the soft pulse of communal gratitude and protective intention, the invisible threads connecting villagers across time and space. Finally, you take a deep, slow breath, feeling the warmth of the sun, the gentle sway of garlands in the breeze, and the subtle energy of a community aligned in thanks and hope. The morning ritual has concluded, leaving a quiet enchantment in its wake, setting the tone for the day's festivities. You are gently swept forward, carried along by the soft hum of anticipation, the laughter of children, and the lingering scent of blessings offered freely and sincerely. You step into the village square, leaving behind the gentle hush of morning blessings, and are immediately enveloped by sound. Flutes trill, drums beat steadily, and a swirl of movement fills your vision as villagers begin to dance in loose, joyful circles. You feel the rhythm in your chest, a heartbeat that carries the energy of harvest, celebration, and subtle mischief. It's the kind of scene anyone could imagine medieval music filling the air, but the details, of course, make it enchanting. You notice the variety of instruments, flutes carved from wood, small hand drums, tambourines jingling in sync, and even a few curious stringed instruments whose origins seem as mysterious as the festival itself. Lesser-known fact: some villagers believed that playing certain tunes at precise moments could influence the growth of crops for the next year. A charming blend of superstition and musical timing. You sway gently, letting the sound wash over you, and realize that even the clumsiest dancers add to the collective rhythm, like mismatched threads forming a rich tapestry. Historians still debate whether these musical rituals were purely entertainment or carried deeper symbolic meaning, but standing here, you're convinced that either way, it works. You see children hopping around with oversized ribbons, attempting to mimic the more practiced steps of adults. One boy trips over his own feet, landing softly in a hay pile, and the nearby dancers chuckle softly, helping him to his feet. You can't help but smile at the continuity of human awkwardness. Some things never change, not even in the middle of a medieval festival. Another light joke: if you tried copying these dance moves now, you'd probably end up tangled in ribbons and slightly embarrassed. Much like that boy, the villagers' movements are oddly hypnotic. Arms swing, feet stamp, and the occasional spin sends skirts and cloaks billowing. You feel drawn into the flow, your own steps becoming tentative yet synchronized with the music. You notice a pattern. Dancers occasionally lift their hands toward the sky, a gesture echoing the morning rituals, connecting blessing with celebration. It's a small, subtle continuity that threads through the day, linking you to rituals past and present. Nearby, a group of elders plays quietly, their hands steady on drums while their eyes twinkle with amusement at the chaos around them. Lesser-known fact: some elders believed that certain drum rhythms could ward off mischievous spirits, attracted by harvest abundance, a blend of superstition and the soothing power of percussion. You tap your fingers along, finding an unexpected meditation in the beats, imagining that the drums are speaking an ancient language only partially understood. Another light joke: you consider whether modern percussionists would approve of this method, or just shake their heads and call it folk. Improvisation: you glance around at the dancers. Some move with grace, others with determined enthusiasm that defies rhythm entirely. A young girl spins wildly, giggling as her skirt flares like a small sun, while a boy nearby attempts a particularly ambitious jump, landing with a soft thud and an apologetic grin. You quietly chuckle. Medieval dance etiquette, if it existed, clearly tolerated creativity. Perhaps everyone was too polite to comment. A second joke flits through your mind. The village dog seems to have taken up its own improvised choreography, weaving in and out of legs, adding a furry percussion of paws on stone. The music shifts subtly, slower now, drawing you into a more contemplative mood. Flutes hum a melancholy line while drums keep a steady, grounding beat. Villagers pair up, moving with quiet intimacy, while others sway alone, letting the rhythm dictate motion rather than formality. You notice how movement blends with emotion. Joy, anticipation, and a touch of reverent awe mixed together. Historians still debate whether medieval dances were primarily social, spiritual, or a little bit of both, but you feel the answer in your chest. A soft vibration that doesn't require agreement. You wander closer to a small ensemble tucked under a tree, where a young woman plucks the strings of a lute. Her melody floats over the square, weaving between flutes and drums, adding a delicate texture that makes the sunlight glint off wooden instruments. Lesser-known fact: in some villages, it was believed that introducing strings to a harvest dance could sweeten the day, ensuring both laughter and prosperity. You inhale deeply, letting the sound mingle with the scent of autumn leaves and lingering pies, feeling a momentary sense of timelessness. Another light joke: if you tried to play along without training, you'd probably invent a new, highly chaotic musical genre. The circle expands, dancers linking hands, feet stamping in unison. You notice how even small gestures, raising a hand, a nod, a playful winkery meaning, these subtle cues create a choreography that is both structured and freeform, a social code embedded in motion. Children dart through the circle, occasionally, interrupting adults with exaggerated leaps, and everyone laughs quietly, acknowledging the interruption as part of the fun. Another joke: if modern choreographers saw this, they'd probably declare it performance art or just smile indulgently at the joyful chaos. The sun climbs higher, casting shifting shadows across the square. You feel the warmth on your skin, the slight breeze catching ribbons, cloaks, and hair, adding a visual accompaniment to the music. The layered sounds, the tapping of feet, the hum of flutes, the low resonant thrum of drums create a gentle sensory overload that is somehow comforting. Lesser known fact: dancers often adjusted their steps depending on the sun's position, believing certain angles brought luck and kept spirits cheerful. You tilt your head, imagining sunlight conducting its own invisible orchestra. Historians still debate whether this was practical superstition or symbolic elegance, but the effect is undeniably magical. A small group begins a playful competition: who can maintain a spin the longest, who can balance a step without tripping, over a ribbon, who can make the dog dance with them. Laughter rings out like soft chimes, blending seamlessly with music. You can't resist smiling. Medieval games might have been simpler, but they clearly had a sense of humor. Another light joke: if you entered the competition, you'd probably trip spectacularly, earning polite applause and gentle teasing. You notice the subtle connection between music and communal identity. Villagers move as one, yet individuality shines in every flourish. You sway gently, feeling the rhythm echo through your body, a quiet heartbeat linking past and present. The sensory layering, the bright sunlight, the earthy scents, the complex rhythms. The human laughter creates a moment that feels both ephemeral and eternal. By late morning, the music winds into a gentle cadence. The drummers soften flutes, trill their final notes, and dancers gradually slow, stepping to quietude. You watch as laughter lingers, fingers still tapping in unconscious rhythm, feet swaying almost imperceptibly. Historians still debate exactly how structured these dances were, whether formal steps were taught or improvisation dominated, but you feel certain that participation mattered more than perfection. Finally, the square settles into soft murmurs. You breathe deeply, absorbing the lingering warmth, the joyful echoes of laughter, and the gentle hum of energy left behind. Children chase stray ribbons, adults exchange quiet nods, and even the village dog rests under a tree, exhausted from impromptu choreography. You feel carried along by this subtle, unbroken pulse, the magic of communal music and dance, gently tethering hearts together. It is a perfect bridge from ritual to the festivities that lie ahead, a living melody of harvest, connection, and quiet wonder. You step back from the lingering melodies of flutes and drums, letting the last echoes of dance settle in the air, and find yourself drawn toward the open field beyond the square. Here, the village transforms into a playground of friendly rivalry and cheerful chaos. Traditional harvest games are about to begin, and you can feel the anticipatory energy buzzing like the gentle hum of bees over ripened fields. You notice the villagers lining up, sizing each other up with exaggerated confidence, and you grin quietly, knowing full well that medieval sportsmanship involves a generous dose of humor. The most recognizable event starts first, the sack race. Villagers climb into oversized burlap sacks, hopping awkwardly toward a finish line marked by a crooked wooden post. You notice a child wobbling dangerously close to a pile of hay, narrowly avoiding a faceplant, and can't help but stifle a laugh. Lesser known fact: some communities believed that hopping in a sack symbolized humility and endurance, a playful nod to survival through the changing seasons. You take a careful step closer, imagining yourself in one of those sacks, and silently congratulate the inventors of stretchy medieval footwear. Historians still debate whether these races originated as practical training for farm work or were purely festive amusement, but watching the participants, it seems clear that fun dominates the intention. Next comes the tug-of-war, a contest of strength and strategy. You observe villagers gripping a frayed rope, feet digging into the soft autumn soil, and muscles straining as each side pulls with synchronized determination. A light joke drifts through your mind. If anyone slipped now, the rope might just drag them straight into a compost heap, much to the amusement of onlookers. Another joke: modern referees would probably blow whistles incessantly, but here, the only rule seems to be don't take yourself too seriously. You note the subtle strategies: feet placement, timing of pull, even gentle distractions like a well-timed laugh revealing that medieval games required more than brute strength. Nearby, a peculiar race is underway, the Agan spoon contest. Villagers balance eggs carefully, hopping or running slowly to a finish line without breaking their fragile cargo. You watch a young woman wobble precariously, arms flailing like a conductor of chaos, narrowly saving her egg from catastrophe. Lesser-known fact: in some regions, they used goose eggs, believed to bring extra luck and laughter to the festival. You lean in, imagining the collective tension as each competitor inches forward, and can't resist a soft chuckle at the absurdity. Historians still debate whether these egg races were meant to teach patience, coordination, or just to entertain. But it's clear the fun was real. A third light joke forms: if you tried this now, your modern sneakers would betray you spectacularly. You wander over to a field set up for archery contests, where villagers attempt to hit wooden targets painted with colorful designs. Arrows fly with a satisfying thwack, some hitting bullseyes, others ricocheting in unpredictable directions. You notice a boy aiming with exaggerated seriousness, glancing over at the crowd for approval with each release. Lesser-known fact: targets often represented mythical creatures or symbols of the harvest, blending sport with storytelling. You smile, imagining a modern Olympic archer facing a target shaped like a pumpkin-headed impet would certainly add pressure. Historians still debate whether symbolic targets influenced accuracy or served purely decorative purposes. But standing here, it seems everyone appreciates both challenge and whimsy. Meanwhile, a team game begins. Villagers balance baskets of apples while racing across the field. Laughter erupts as one participant, overconfident in their speed, loses balance and sends a cascade of apples tumbling like a fruity waterfall. You inhale the scent of crushed fruit and fallen leaves, imagining the mild chaos as a form of sensory celebration. Lesser-known fact: apple races sometimes included a hidden rule where a dropped fruit could be rescued by teammates, reinforcing cooperation amid friendly competition. Another light joke: if you tried this, your basket might double as a makeshift drum as apples bounce everywhere. You quietly admire the ingenuity of these playful rules, blending amusement with gentle lessons in teamwork. Not all contests are physical. You find a small tent where riddles and clever challenges await. Villagers gather, eager to stump one another with puzzles involving harvest, lore, animals, and local legends. You lean against a post, listening and chuckling softly. Someone just asked which grain refuses to bow, and a young boy confidently answers, the stiff wheat. The crowd erupts in polite laughter, and you feel a momentary connection to centuries of shared humor. Lesser-known fact: riddling competitions often served to maintain oral history, teaching younger generations stories and proverbs in playful ways. Historians still debate whether these challenges were as much about education as entertainment. But you find yourself appreciating both aspects. As the day warms, a quirky race begins. Villagers must hop while carrying small bundles of straw. You observe attempts ranging from graceful to comically clumsy, some competitors nearly toppling over, yet laughing through every wobble. You can't help a soft chuckle. Modern exercise videos could never replicate the charm of this medieval sport. Another joke. If anyone dropped their straw, it was immediately fair game for a playful to-go vor. The crowd encourages, teases, and cheers, creating a sense of camaraderie threaded with laughter. Across the field, a small circle hosts a piting contest. Participants smear pastry and fruit across faces, competing for sheer quantity without tipping over. You inhale the sweet aroma of baked goods mingling with earthy fields and can't help a soft laugh. Medieval Messiences seems far more participatory than modern table manners. Lesser-known fact, piting contests were sometimes symbolic, representing abundance and shared prosperity. Historians still debate whether the competitive aspect was originally ritualistic or purely festive, but the joy is unmistakable. You notice the subtle patterns connecting these games: humor, challenge, cooperation, and celebration. Each contest, no matter how silly or serious, reinforces community bonds. You step back, taking in the scene. Laughter, cheers, and playful groans form a gentle symphony, underscored by the rhythmic footfalls of racers and jumps. Another light joke: if you joined, you'd likely trip spectacularly, earning applause, gentle teasing, and perhaps an honorary straw crown. The afternoon sun begins to tilt, casting long shadows over the field. You observe villagers quietly helping one another, passing baskets of fruit, steadying unsteady competitors, and applauding. Small victories, the games wind down, leaving behind lingering giggles, faintly bruised egos, and a shared sense of joy. Lesser-known fact, post-game rituals sometimes included symbolic gestures of thanks to the earth, like sprinkling a handful of straw or grain back onto the fields. Historians still debate the original purpose of these actions, whether practical or symbolic, but standing here, you sense the thread of gratitude woven through every tumble, sprint, and chuckle. Finally, the village settles into soft murmurs. You inhale the warm air, smelling apples, baked pies, and autumn leaves, feeling the gentle pulse of shared experience lingering in the field. You notice children chasing small animals, adults exchanging quiet smiles, and the occasional stray sheep observing the scene with mild curiosity. The games have concluded, leaving a sense of playful camaraderie that ties neighbors, families, and friends together, readying everyone for the next stage of harvest festivities. You follow the scent of smoke and sweet pastries, drifting from the center of the village toward a large fire crackling near the edge of the square. Villagers gather in loose circles, their faces lit by warm amber light, eyes glinting with anticipation. You find a comfortable spot on the soft earth, feeling the gentle heat brush your skin, and settle in to listen as the elders begin their stories. The familiar crackle of the fire and the low hum of evening chatter set the stage for an enchanting blend of history and legend, one that threads the harvest, spirits, and the village itself into a seamless tapestry. A prominent elder leans forward, voice soft but compelling, beginning with a tale everyone seems to know: how a particularly bountiful harvest was once attributed to the intervention of a kindly spirit that guarded the fields. You hear the familiar rhythm of repeated words and dramatic pauses, each carefully measured to maintain attention and coax sleepy smiles. Lesser-known fact: some villagers assign specific roles to storytellers, believing their tone and gestures could influence the harvest of the coming year. You watch as the elder waves a hand over the flames, shadows dancing on faces, creating a hypnotic, almost magical atmosphere. Historians still debate whether such performances were purely ritualistic or also served as community instruction, but for now, you are completely absorbed in the unfolding tale. You notice subtle gestures, connecting past and present. A young girl mimics the elder's hand movements, while a boy shifts closer to peek at the fire's dancing shadows. The stories are punctuated with gentle humor. One elder teases a forgetful villager mid-story, claiming the spirit itself must have swapped their memory for a laugh. You chuckle softly. Even centuries later, it seems humans enjoy pranks and playful exaggeration. Another light joke: if you tried retelling the tale exactly as heard, your timing would likely get tripped up by your own modern impatience. The elder's next story delves into a slightly darker, more mysterious tale, describing a spirit of the harvest that rewarded diligence and good cheer but mischievously tangled unattended crops. You feel the tension in the pause, the careful cadence drawing listeners closer, even as the fire casts shifting shapes across the ground. Lesser-known fact: some villagers believed that failing to acknowledge the spirit's presence could result in minor inconveniences, like misplaced tools or a suddenly slippery patch in the field. You grin softly, imagining the medieval equivalent of a prankster ghost, and feel a quiet sense of kinship with these playful superstitions. Historians still debate whether these beliefs influenced actual farming practices or were simply entertaining moral tales, but the effect on community cohesion is undeniable. You lean in as another elder begins recounting a story linking harvest rituals to ancient myths. The tale spins between humans and spirits, weaving in subtle lessons about respect, generosity, and the cyclical nature of life. Lesser-known fact: certain motifs like entwined crops or animals appearing in dreams recurred across villages, suggesting a shared cultural imagination that transcended geographic boundaries. You listen, imagining the landscape of the past, golden fields shimmering under an autumn sun, the wind rustling grains like whispers from centuries ago. A second light joke drifts through your thoughts. If someone tried to reenact these myths literally today, they might spend a long afternoon chasing invisible spirits around a farm. The storytelling shifts to humor. An elder recounts the antics of a mischievous village spirit that played tricks on harvesters, from hiding apples in unexpected places to nudging a farmer's cart into a shallow ditch. You laugh softly at the imagery, sensing the gentle exaggeration and knowing nods of listeners around you. Lesser-known fact: some villagers created small effigies of these spirits during harvest festivals, both as homage and a way to invite playful interaction. You glance around, noticing the children's eyes wide with delight, and the adults' quiet amusement, appreciating how humor keeps stories alive across generations. Historians still debate the line between ritual and entertainment in these tales, but you find it hard to distinguish. Both serve to enchant and engage. The night deepens, and the fire's glow becomes the primary light source, highlighting faces and shadows that seem to sway in time with the tales. A third elder takes the stage, telling a story of a lost harvest horn, a magical instrument said to summon bounty and laughter. You imagine the horn, gleaming with carved runes, echoing across golden fields. Lesser-known fact: the horn's sound was believed to strengthen communal bonds, a subtle social glue wrapped in folklore. You chuckle. If anyone played it now, you'd probably just hear squeaks and slightly panicked goats. Another light joke. Even so, the symbolism remains charmingly intact. Throughout, the storytelling is punctuated by questions to the audience. Would you have helped the farmer? Or which spirit would you invite to your feast? Drawing you into the narrative in ways simple narration rarely achieves. You feel both a participant and a silent observer, your imagination filling gaps left by shadows and pauses. Less fact, some villagers encouraged interactive listening, believing that audience reactions could energize the tale, almost like an ancient form of feedback loop. Historians still debate the effectiveness of these techniques, but standing here, you feel the enchantment firsthand. Occasionally, laughter bubbles spontaneously as one elder recounts a comically bungled ritual involving a haystack, a bucket of apples, and a very confused goat. You grin quietly. Medieval absurdity has a timeless quality. Another light joke. If you had been present, your modern reflexes might have failed spectacularly at dodging flying apples. You notice a rhythm forming in the storytelling. The combination of suspense, humor, and gentle moral instruction keeps listeners engaged, while the fire's crackle underlines every pause. You sense the subtle connection between tales. Each story, though unique, weaves into the larger fabric of harvest life, teaching lessons while entertaining. Children imitate gestures, adults nod knowingly, and even those who came quietly find themselves drawn into the communal magic. Lesser-known fact: in some regions, elders use tiny prop sleeves, feathers, small figurines to enhance storytelling, a tactile accompaniment to verbal narration. Historians still debate the extent to which props influenced engagement versus imagination. But for now, you are absorbed, feeling history dance in shadows. As the fire dies down to embers, the final story emerges a reflection on the harvests. Cyclical nature, spirit's enduring presence, and the village's resilience. You notice the gentle wind picking up, carrying soft leaves across the square, and sense the invisible thread connecting everyone here, past and present. A third light joke. If you whispered a modern question to these spirits, you might get an amused nudge or a mysteriously misplaced tool. Another, you imagine explaining smartphones to a harvest spirit, surely a tale they would treasure in legend form. Finally, the elders lean back, murmurs of satisfaction blending with the crackling embers. You breathe in the mixed sense of fire, earth, and lingering pastries, feeling the calm satisfaction of stories well told. The village is quiet, but alive with imagination, a shared narrative that bridges centuries. Historians still debate the precise origins and intent of these storytelling rituals, but you feel certain that the enchantment is real. The night air carries whispers of magic, laughter, and soft understanding as you prepare to follow the village toward the next evening event. You rise from the warmth of the storytelling circle, your senses still lingering in the gentle glow of the fire, and notice a soft murmuring in the village square. Villagers are gathering for the evening lantern procession, a tradition that transforms the familiar streets into a river of golden light. You step carefully onto the cobblestones, feeling the cool evening air brushing against your skin, and join the line of villagers carrying lanterns shaped like tiny suns, moons, and occasionally the local whimsy prevails teasingly, small animals or oversized fruits. Lesser-known fact: some lanterns were crafted to represent protective spirits, believed to guide the community safely through the coming winter. You can almost hear them whisper in rhythm with the flickering flames, though a second, light joke drifts through your mind. If you tried carrying one of these delicate creations in a gusty wind, you'd likely end up with a glowing hat rather than a lantern. As the procession begins, the village streets transform under the warm, wavering light. You notice neighbors nudging each other playfully, careful not to jostle a lantern, yet all sharing quiet laughter at the occasional lopsided design or crooked handle. The procession flows slowly, allowing everyone to savor the movement of light and shadow. Historians still debate whether these processions were originally sacred rituals, purely community entertainment, or some charming mixture of both, but walking through them, it feels undeniably magical. You catch yourself smiling, imagining a modern traffic jam illuminated by dozens of medieval lanterns. Chaos would likely ensue, but here, everything moves with gentle harmony. The path winds through familiar streets, now transformed by the lantern glow. Windows reflect the amber light, and children peek from doorways, their eyes wide with awe. You notice one particularly elaborate lantern shaped like a crescent moon, balanced precariously in the hands of a young boy whose excitement makes the flame dance dangerously. Lesser-known fact: villagers sometimes used lanterns to represent the sun's journey, marking the transition from harvest to winter. A second soft joke surfaces. If you dropped yours now, you might just start an unintentional game of glowing. Hot potato. You tread carefully, laughing inwardly at the thought, while the crowd hums a low rhythmic chant, punctuating the procession with a sense of ritualized camaraderie. Along the route, the villagers pause near the central well, where the oldest lanterns are set on stone ledges, their light reflecting in the water. You lean closer, sensing the cool moisture and the subtle crackle of flames mirrored in the surface. Lesser-known fact: some traditions held that reflections in water could show glimpses of unseen spirits, a playful intersection of mysticism. An observation: you chuckle softly. If anyone took this too literally, they might spend hours staring at a puddle, hoping for a supernatural cameo. Historians still debate the significance of water reflections in these rituals, but it's clear they add a mesmerizing, contemplative layer to the evening. The procession moves toward the fields, the autumn sky deepening into indigo, stars faintly twinkling above. You hear the shuffle of feet, soft whispers, and the occasional murmur of a joking neighbor. Careful, don't set the pumpkins on fire with that lantern. A third light joke drifts through your mind. Imagine a modern safety inspector arriving mid-procession. They'd probably faint at the sight of dancing flames so close to thatched roofs. Yet, the villagers' careful choreography keeps the procession calm, rhythmic, and enchanting. You observe how lantern shapes vary across households. Some depict animals associated with harvest, others abstract patterns, and a few even mischievous faces carved to tease passers-by. Lesser-known fact: villagers sometimes allowed children to create their own designs, fostering creativity while subtly teaching lessons about balance, patience, and community responsibility. You grin quietly at the thought of tiny, wobbly lanterns bobbing along the procession like glowing jellyfish. Historians still debate the extent to which children's participation influenced the ritual's structure, but the joy is unmistakable. Halfway through, the villagers halt at the village's old stone bridge. Lanterns are raised high, casting intricate shadows on the arches and river below. You take a deep breath, feeling the crisp night air and the faint scent of autumn leaves mixing with the faint aroma of evening fires. Lesser-known fact: Bridges were sometimes chosen as ritual points because water was seen as a conduit for blessings, carrying light and intention downstream. You chuckle softly. A dropped lantern could theoretically float away with good wishes. Start an unplanned water joust. The procession resumes slowly, the glow tracing a river of golden dots through the darkened village nearby. A few elders perform quiet gestures as they walk, blessing the lanterns and murmuring words meant to ensure protection for both villagers and livestock. You notice how these subtle movements, repeated over generations, evoke a serene sense of continuity. Another soft joke. If you tried to mimic them, you might accidentally bless a very surprised chicken instead. Lesser-known fact: gestures often varied subtly between regions, reflecting local customs while preserving overarching tradition. Historians still debate how much these rituals were standardized versus improvisational, but you appreciate the harmony of motion and intent. The procession rounds the hill near the old granary, the lantern light glowing like a gentle wave washing over the golden fields below. You see couples walking hand in hand, friends exchanging playful nudges, and children balancing their lanterns with wide-eyed concentration. Lesser-known fact: some lanterns were infused with herbs or scented oils, producing a soft aroma of autumn herbs and honey as they moved. You inhale quietly, imagining the mingling scents and soft light as a multi-sensory celebration. Another light joke: modern aromatherapy classes could learn a thing or two from medieval ingenuity. Finally, the procession reaches the village square, where the lanterns are gathered and arranged into intricate patterns, glowing like a constellation on the cobblestones. You kneel or sit to admire the display, feeling a quiet pulse of communal pride and magical ambience. Lesser-known fact: these arrangements were sometimes left overnight, believed to continue warding off misfortune and guiding travelers in the dark. Historians still debate whether the practice was protective, ceremonial, or simply artistic, but the effect on you is enchanting. The villagers linger a while, sharing soft laughter, gentle teasing, and whispered observations about whose lantern was the wobbliest or most creative. You feel a sense of connection, not just to them, but to generations of villagers who participated in this ritual before you. A third soft joke emerges. If you attempted a competitive lantern race now, the most likely result would be a tangled mess of glowing lights and embarrassed apologies. You inhale deeply, letting the warmth of the lantern glow and the cool night air settle around you as the lanterns are finally lowered and the night grows quieter. You linger in the soft amber glow, reflecting on the gentle interplay of light, ritual, and communal celebration. You hear distant laughter echoing down empty streets, see the last flickers of flame in carefully protected lanterns, and feel the gentle pulse of history wrapping around the village. The mystical and festive elements blend seamlessly, leaving a memory of light, warmth, and quiet camaraderie that will linger as the village returns to slumber. You follow the soft glow of lanterns back toward the village square, the warm amber light fading gently behind you as the night deepens. Villagers begin to settle around long, rough-hewn tables, laden with steaming dishes, aromatic breads, and the subtle sparkle of spiced mead. You sit on a straw-stuffed bench, feeling the gentle sway of the wooden frame beneath you, and notice how even in the quiet hum of settling dinner, small stories begin to weave themselves into conversation. The chatter is soft, punctuated by laughter that seems to rise and fall like a gentle tide, carrying with it snippets of myth, folklore, and playful exaggeration. The first story drifts from the neighboring bench, an elder recounting the tale of the harvest fairy, who allegedly sprinkled luck on diligent workers but playfully tripped the lazy ones. You can almost see her tiny, shimmering form darting between the stalks of wheat and barley. Lesser-known fact: in some villages, children were encouraged to leave small offerings of grain or nuts on windowsills to appease these whimsical spirits. A charming prelude to modern trick-or-treat ideas. You grin softly. If you left your smartphone as an offering, the fairy might just ignore you or prank you by turning autocorrect into a mischievous imp. Historians still debate whether such stories were primarily moral lessons or creative entertainment, but the enchantment in the retelling is palpable. Nearby, a group of villagers share a quiet laugh over a tale of a mischievous goat who supposedly stole moonlight to light the fields for late harvesters. You lean in, savoring the gentle melody of voices and the faint clink of tankards. Another light joke surfaces. Imagine trying to explain to a modern goat that moonlight theft is frowned upon. Lesser-known fact: goats were often central to harvest. Myths symbolizing fertility, stubbornness, and a surprisingly effective sense of comedic timing. You watch as a child imitates the goat's antics, and adults chuckle knowingly. Appreciating the blend of realism and myth, the conversation shifts to an account of enchanted tools, supposedly blessed with the ability to harvest grain with ease. You imagine scythes that hum softly when swung correctly, or baskets that refuse to tip over no matter how full they are. Lesser-known fact: some tools were actually engraved with symbols believed to bring luck, combining utility with a touch of superstition. Another soft joke drifts through your thoughts. Modern farmers might just call this pre-market branding. Historians still debate whether these engravings held genuine belief or were whimsical adornments, but the shared attention they inspired certainly fostered communal pride. You sip a warm cup of spiced mead, the scent of cinnamon and honey mingling with the autumn air, and watch as stories shift seamlessly from myth to memory. An elder recounts a tale of a hidden brook flowing beneath the village, said to carry whispers of old harvests and the laughter of long-gone villagers. Lesser-known fact: some villagers would toss a small token into the water, believing it would carry a message of thanks or a wish for protection. You smile, imagining your own token, a coin or a forgotten button drifting quietly, perhaps nudged along by unseen currents. Another light joke surfaces: if you tossed your shoes instead, the brook might politely return them the next morning. Nearby, a couple of teens whisper excitedly about the invisible harvest spirits they claim to have seen. You chuckle softly. Their enthusiasm is infectious, and you almost wish you could see the shimmer of these playful beings yourself. Lesser-known fact: villagers sometimes held evening storytelling sessions, just to allow children to glimpse what adults claimed were hidden spirits, blending cautionary tales with harmless thrills. Historians still debate the veracity of these sightings, but their function in maintaining village cohesion is unquestionable. You notice a gentle rhythm in the evening's narration. Stories interlace. The harvest fairy meets mischievous goats. Enchanted tools cross paths with hidden brooks, and spirits peek from shadows under benches and lanterns. Each narrative folds into the next with quiet continuity, making the evening feel like a soft, rolling wave of magic and human connection. Another light joke: if someone tried to chronicle all these stories today, they'd likely end up with a manuscript thicker than the entire village ledger. You smile, accepting that part of the charm lies in selective memory, in the shared understanding that not every detail needs to be perfectly precise. The villagers begin to play small games. As stories conclude, mimicking scenes or improvising minor enactments of legendary mishaps. You lean back, appreciating the subtle humor of adults and children alike, the gentle teasing and the comfortable ease that comes from a community fully immersed in its own lore. Lesser-known fact, these enactments helped pass lessons about cooperation, patience, and respect for nature without the need for formal instruction. Another soft joke. Modern adults might call it team building with goats and invisible spirits. Historians still debate whether these performances were primarily educational or simply entertaining. But the collective delight is unmistakable. You feel the subtle hum of the village settling into a relaxed rhythm. Plates are cleared gently, soft conversation continues, and the fire from earlier casts its last amber glow across the cobblestones. The air carries a faint chill, and you draw your cloak a little tighter, listening as someone softly recounts a story of a harvest spirit who rewarded those who shared freely and quietly teased those who hoarded. Lesser-known fact, sharing during harvest festivals was so culturally emphasized that even minor acts of generosity were believed to influence the following year's bounty. Another light joke drifts through your mind. Modern supermarkets might benefit from a sprinkling of enchanted fairness. As the evening winds down, the tales gradually slow in pace, voices softer, laughter more subdued. You feel the gentle pull of drowsiness, soothed by the blend of myth, gentle humor, and subtle ritual. Lesser-known fact, storytelling sessions were sometimes deliberately timed before rest, the soothing cadence thought to promote calm sleep. Historians still debate how intentional this practice was versus coincidental, but the effect is clear. You feel the pull of tranquility as the stream of stories ebbs into quiet reflection. Finally, the village grows almost silent, punctuated only by soft breathing, a stray chuckle, or the distant call of a night bird. You let your gaze wander toward the imagined hidden brook beneath the village, its waters still carrying whispers and tokens, and feel a soft sense of wonder for centuries of gentle enchantment. Another soft joke surfaces. If you tried tossing your modern smartwatch into the stream, the spirit might raise an amused eyebrow, perhaps ensure you dream about it all night. You close your eyes briefly, imagining the glow of lanterns fading behind closed lids, the soft warmth of community wrapping round you. You drift toward sleep, feeling the stories and laughter lingering, each myth, each playful spirit, each minor enchantment weaving into the quiet tapestry of night. You sense the invisible stream beneath the village, carrying echoes of gratitude, gentle pranks, and whispered lessons, all flowing softly, persistently, invisibly. Another soft joke. If you start dreaming of talking goats or mischievous harvest fairies, just smile, they've been telling stories this way for centuries. You linger near the edge of the village square, the warmth of the lanterns now a memory, as the night settles into a velvet quiet. From the fields beyond, a gentle chorus rises, nocturnal songs and chants drifting on the cool autumn breeze. You notice the villagers softly harmonizing, voices weaving together like threads of light spun from the moon itself. It is a communal lullaby, meant to soothe both people and fields after the long day of harvest. Lesser-known fact, some of these songs were specifically structured to mimic natural sounds, rustling wheat, chirping crickets, and the distant call of owls blurring the line between human and nature. You chuckle softly. If you tried recording it for a modern playlist, it might end up in a niche section labeled relaxing medieval farm ambience. The rhythm of the chants is slow and deliberate, each villager aware of their place in the collective. You notice a couple of children swaying in rhythm, barely containing giggles at the more exaggerated movements of adults trying to emulate the rustling grain. Another soft joke drifts through your mind. Imagine a conductor waving a stick over a patch of barley to keep perfect tempo. Historians still debate whether these nocturnal chants were rooted in ritualistic necessity or simply a creative way to encourage rest. But the effect on you is undeniably calming. You step closer to the edge of a nearby wheat field, letting your fingers brush the golden stalks. The swaying motion of the plants seems almost synchronized with the soft human chorus. Lesser known fact, some fields were purposefully planted with varying stalk heights to enhance the visual and acoustic effects of the harvest lullabies. You can't help but grin. In modern terms, it's like medieval acoustic engineering. A second light joke surfaces. Just imagine an over-enthusiastic villager trying to tune the wheat with a tiny lute unlikely to improve sound, but certainly entertaining. The chants tell stories as they flow, subtle references to mischievous harvest sprites, tales of hidden springs beneath the soil, and quiet acknowledgments of the work done by hands both young and old. You notice the gentle interplay between repetition and variation, a subtle form of hypnotic storytelling. Lesser known fact, some refrains were altered slightly each. Season 2 reflect changing weather patterns or the community's fortune, almost like a seasonal remix. You laugh quietly. DJs of the 14th century might not have needed turntables, just a crop field and a willing village choir. Historians still debate how much improvisation was allowed versus strict tradition, but you sense a flexible living practice rather than a rigid ritual. You wander through the soft shadows of the village streets where a few lanterns still flicker, and notice small groups continuing their chants in hushed tones. Children are already yawning, leaning against their parents, while a few elders hum with eyes closed, seemingly in communion with both the earth and the stars above. Lesser known fact, certain melodies were believed to influence the growth of crops, thought to encourage grain to settle or ripen evenly. Another soft joke drifts through your mind. If you tried this in a modern garden, the neighbors might call the authorities over your spontaneous midnight concert. The air is crisp, carrying hints of autumn leaves and lingering spices from the evening feast. You pause to notice the subtle variations in pitch and tone. One villager's deep hum resonates with the bass of the earth, while another's higher voice seems to bounce playfully among the stalks. Lesser known fact, the specific intervals used in some chants were deliberately chosen to mimic naturally calming frequencies, a medieval precursor to modern ASMR. You can't help smiling, centuries before anyone coined relaxation videos. These villagers were perfecting the art. A third light joke arises. If your neighbors tried joining in, they might accidentally start a competitive hum-off. The cadence slows further as midnight approaches, the distant owls adding punctuation to the gentle chorus. You follow the sound along a narrow path flanked by hedgerows, feeling the soft rustle of leaves underfoot and a faint vibration from the synchronized human voice. Lesser known fact, villagers occasionally synchronize their breaths during chants to maximize communal energy, a practice historians still debate as either symbolic or practical. You grin at the mental image, a coordinated medieval breathing exercise, perhaps the original meditation circle. You catch sight of a young couple leaning together under a lantern, singing softly while holding hands. Their voices merge seamlessly with the ambient hum, a gentle testament to both affection and community. Lesser-known fact, small duets were encouraged to strengthen bonds within families and between neighbors, subtly weaving social cohesion into nocturnal ritual. Another light joke surfaces. You imagine them attempting a modern duet contest, judged by the village goat, likely an impartial but easily distracted arbiter. A thin mist begins to rise from the fields, curling around the village edges, enhancing the sense of otherworldly calm. You notice the glint of dew catching the lantern light, a delicate, sparkling accompaniment to the songs. Lesser-known fact, the mist was often interpreted as a bridge between the mortal world and the spirits invoked. In song, a gentle reminder of harvest mysteries. You chuckle softly. If you wore socks outside now, you'd likely end up with shoes squishing in puddles rather than mystical insight. Historians still debate whether such interpretations were primarily poetic or held deeper spiritual meaning. You continue through the village center, letting the songs carry you like a river of sound. The rhythmic repetition, coupled with subtle variations, creates a hypnotic effect, and you find yourself unconsciously swaying, a participant in a centuries-old tradition. Lesser-known fact, some verses were designed to induce light trance-like states, preparing workers for rest and reflection. Another soft joke drifts by. Imagine a modern HR department trying to implement a medieval field lullaby in corporate offices. As the last echoes fade into the night, you pause near the edge of the fields, feeling a gentle tug of serenity. Children are asleep in stroffled beds, elders sit in quiet contentment, and the soft wind carries residual notes of the chants into the surrounding forest. Lesser-known fact, occasionally a lone villager would continue humming past midnight, believed to keep wandering spirits company. You grin at the notion. Perhaps even ghosts enjoy a bedtime serenade. Finally, the village lies in hushed tranquility, the songs and chants reduced to faint whispers among the wheat. You inhale deeply, letting the subtle scent of autumn and lingering melodies sink into your senses, feeling the gentle embrace of both history and night. Another soft joke, if you start dreaming of glowing lanterns and invisible harvest spirits, just smile, they've been accompanying villagers to sleep for centuries. You lie down on a soft patch of hay or rest against a worn bench, letting your eyelids grow heavy. The nocturnal lullaby blends seamlessly with the soft rustle of wheat and the distant call of night creatures. You feel the collective heartbeat of a village at rest, the gentle rhythm of human and natural harmony guiding you toward dreams. The mystical, communal lullaby ensures that as you drift into sleep, the stories, light, and soft humor of the harvest night accompany you gently. You follow the soft lantern glow back to the village square, where long tables are once again prepared, this time for the presentation of harvest offerings. The air carries a gentle scent of straw, herbs, and the faint sweetness of ripened fruit, mingling with laughter and hushed anticipation. Villagers begin arranging sheaves of wheat, bundles of herbs, baskets brimming with apples, pears, and squashes, all carefully placed as symbolic gifts to honor the season's bounty. You crouch slightly, observing how each gift is accompanied by a quiet nod, a playful wink, or a whispered blessing. Lesser-known fact, in some medieval villages, these offerings were arranged in specific geometric patterns, believed to channel prosperity and protect the crops for the coming year. You chuckle softly. Imagine trying to explain to a modern friend that your pumpkin placement follows ancient magical geometry. They'd probably reach for a measuring tape. The first ceremonial presentation catches your attention. A sturdy farmer, steps forward, offering a large bundle of barley tied with colorful ribbons. The crowd claps lightly, and children scamper about, placing tiny figurines made of straw alongside the sheaves. Another soft joke drifts through your thoughts. You picture someone trying to gift wrap a cabbage and bow it with glitter medieval DIY style. Historians still debate whether these figurines held spiritual significance, acted as teaching tools for children, or were merely playful decorations. But the charm of the practice is unmistakable. Nearby, a group of women carefully present small, playful gifts, carved wooden animals, tiny charms, and hand-embroidered tokens. You notice their subtle smiles and gentle nudges as they exchange these items, teasingly acknowledging inside jokes only the villagers would understand. Lesser-known fact: some gifts were designed to subtly remind recipients of past debts or favors in a light-hearted, socially binding way. You grin quietly. It's like medieval passive-aggressive gifting, but everyone knows it's part of the fun. Another light joke surfaces. Imagine receiving a carrot with a wink as a reminder to water your neighbor's garden next spring. You wander closer to the central square, where the village elders have placed a large, elaborately decorated basket containing mixed grains, honey, and a few hidden trinkets. Children peer curiously, trying to spot the hidden surprises before the elders reveal them. Lesser-known fact: these trinkets often included miniature tools, symbolic of hard work and cleverness, encouraging recipients to emulate these virtues. You can't help chuckling in a modern context. It's like receiving a tiny motivational keychain, but with slightly more medieval flair. Historians still debate whether the trinkets were primarily educational, spiritual, or just a charming form of entertainment, but their effect on community joy is undeniable. A gentle murmur of laughter follows as a farmer presents a surprisingly heavy pumpkin to a neighbor, accompanied by an exaggerated bow. You hear whispers and soft giggles ripple through the crowd. The neighbor pretends to struggle lifting it, adding drama to the ritual. Lesser-known fact: some harvest gifts were intentionally oversized or comically impractical to elicit laughter and teach humility. Another soft joke: imagine trying to carry a pumpkin bigger than your head to a modern potluck. You'd get Instagram fame instantly. Nearby, a young couple places a small bouquet of dried flowers atop a sheaf of wheat, symbolizing both romantic connection and shared prosperity. You observe how the villagers notice these small gestures, nodding approvingly or whispering compliments. Lesser-known fact: floral offerings sometimes replaced or complemented edible gifts, reflecting a subtle awareness of aesthetic pleasure in addition to practical utility. You grin quietly. It's like medieval flower delivery, but with a touch of public spectacle. Historians still debate whether these acts were romantic, symbolic, or purely performative, but the social bonding effect is clear as the evening deepens. More villagers step forward, exchanging small gifts with theatrical flair. A child presents a carved wooden bird to an elder, who pretends to examine it seriously before erupting in gentle laughter. Another light joke surfaces. Imagine a modern CEO receiving a miniature wooden goose at an awards ceremony. They'd either be delighted or utterly confused. Lesser-known fact: these playful exchanges were crucial in reinforcing community hierarchies in a friendly, humorous manner, reminding everyone of both roles and mutual affection. The crowd hums softly as the final round of offerings takes place. You notice a subtle rhythm in the presentations, almost musical, as the villagers' laughter, whispered thanks, and gentle jokes create a layered, soothing soundscape. Lesser-known fact: some villages timed these gift exchanges in harmony with the lunar cycle, believing it enhanced the spiritual efficacy of their offerings. You chuckle softly. Modern planners might call it peak gifting season optimization. Historians still debate whether the lunar connection was truly spiritual or just convenient timing, but the sense of shared ritual is undeniable. You wander toward a small fountain at the village center, where a few playful gifts are left to float: carved figurines, tiny bundles of grain, and a single bright apple that rocks gently on the water's surface. Lesser-known fact: floating offerings were thought to carry messages of thanks to unseen spirits or ancestors, blending playfulness with devotion. Another light joke: imagine tossing your smartphone instead of a token. You might wake up to very polite notifications from centuries past. The air is filled with soft laughter and the muted clink of small gifts being placed and admired. Children imitate adults, attempting exaggerated bows and comical presentations. You lean back slightly, letting the gentle rhythm of ritual, humor, and communal warmth settle around you. Lesser-known fact: this mimicry allowed younger villagers to learn both social etiquette and the joy of giving, blending education and amusement seamlessly. You grin quietly. It's like medieval role-playing, only with more straw. By now, the villagers are winding down. The last offerings are set, and a calm tranquility spreads over the square. You notice subtle glances exchanged, soft nods, and quiet acknowledgements of shared accomplishment. Another soft joke surfaces. In a modern context, this would be like ending a company's Secret Santa with applause and ceremonial bows. Lesser-known fact: the ceremonial placement of gifts often reinforced a sense of equality, as everyone's contribution, no matter how small, was acknowledged publicly. Historians still debate the balance between genuine ritual importance and performative charm, but the effect on morale is palpable. Finally, you take a step back, inhaling the autumn night air scented with straw, ripe fruit, and lingering spices. The offerings, symbolic items, and playful gifts now rest quietly, ready to be cherished, admired, and remembered. You sense the gentle humor, social bonding, and subtle mystical undertones that weave these acts into the larger tapestry of harvest. Celebration. Another soft joke drifts through your thoughts. If someone tried this in a modern grocery store, the staff might assume it's a flash mob or a very elaborate medieval cosplay. You feel the quiet satisfaction of a village united in ritual, laughter, and generosity. Each gift, each sheaf, each carved trinket carries echoes of care, community, and centuries of tradition. The warmth of human connection gently seeps into your chest, preparing you for the slow descent into night and the soft comfort of knowing that even small, playful gestures can hold meaning. You wander closer to the large, flickering campfire at the edge of the village square, where elders sit in a loose semicircle, their faces glowing warmly in the orange light. You hear the occasional snap of burning wood, the soft hiss of embers, and the gentle murmur of anticipation from younger villagers, their eyes wide with curiosity. Tonight, as the chill of the autumn evening settles in, the elders prepare to share stories that are rarely told, legends that have faded from most, chronicles and little-known facts that make you tilt your head in wonder. You ease onto a nearby log, brushing a stray leaf from your cloak, and think to yourself that surviving even a single night in medieval autumn, dodging hay bales and overly enthusiastic goats, would probably make you appreciate these gentle tales. Even more, the first elder begins with a tale of the harvest spirit, a whimsical, elusive figure said to wander between the fields at dusk, ensuring crops grow tall and golden. You lean closer, hearing the deliberate cadence of words, each pause punctuated by a soft crackle from the fire. Lesser-known fact, some villagers believed the spirit preferred offerings of small, carved animals or miniature grain bundles placed under open windows as both tribute and mild trickery. You grin quietly. Imagine sneaking out at night to leave tiny straw sheep for an invisible farmhand. Modern life doesn't exactly accommodate that kind of mischief. Historians still debate whether this was truly a spiritual belief or more of a clever method to encourage children to help with harvest duties. Another elder chuckles softly as he recounts the vanishing wagon of Rin, a legend about a merchant's cart that supposedly disappeared during harvest season, leaving behind a trail of gleaming apples. You picture it clearly, children running through the misty fields, imagining the cart's mysterious journey, while adults shake their heads with amused smiles. Lesser-known fact, similar stories were often used to explain missing goods or to subtly enforce honesty among villagers. You nudge yourself quietly. It's like medieval misplacing Yerke's folklore, but with a hint of magic. A second soft joke drifts through your thoughts. Maybe the merchant just overslept in the hayloft. The firelight dances across the circle as the elders shift to stories of heroic animals, like a fox who supposedly guided a lost shepherd back to his flock. You feel the gentle warmth of the flames and the soft rhythm of voices blending with the whispering wind. Lesser-known fact, some of these animal tales were actually clever mnemonic devices to teach farming techniques or seasonal timing. You chuckle. Modern GPS apps could never match the cunning of a legendary fox. Historians still debate whether the animals were ever real characters or purely imaginative storytelling devices, but their charm lingers unmistakably. A playful elder interjects with a story about a village that celebrated harvest by building elaborate straw effigies, some of which were rumored to come alive for a night. You catch a soft laugh from nearby children, their eyes wide with anticipation and slight fear. Lesser-known fact, straw effigies were sometimes used to symbolically carry away misfortune or disease, cleverly disguised as entertainment. Another light joke floats through your mind. Picture a medieval prank where a straw giant knocks on your door at midnight, to'd probably scream, then invited in for tea. The elders continue, each tale weaving mystery with amusement. You notice how certain gestures, like tapping the handle of a wooden staff or flicking a few embers toward the night sky, add to the enchantment. Lesser-known fact, these tiny theatrical elements reinforced attention, memory, and participation, ensuring that both young and old absorbed lessons tucked within the stories. You smile quietly. It's like medieval storytelling with subtle special effects, no subscription required. Historians still debate the exact origin of many of these narratives, whether rooted in ancient myth, local observation, or spontaneous invention, but the effect on community cohesion is undeniable. One elder leans forward, voice lowered, recounting the tale of the Golden Harvest Mare, a mythical horse said to appear only during nights of the autumn full moon, carrying seeds that never fail to sprout. You hear the soft gasp of a child nearby, blending with the whisper of wind through the trees. Lesser-known fact, villagers sometimes left small offerings outside to invite the mare's blessing, blending superstition with gratitude. You chuckle softly. In modern terms, this is basically a magical subscription box for better crops. Another gentle joke. The mayor probably had the best attendance record in medieval. History never missed a harvest. The firelight flickers, casting shadows that twist like silent dancers across the faces of attentive listeners. The elders tell of peculiar weather signs, like the whistling wind of Wharton that supposedly predicted harvest yield. Lesser-known fact, these observations were early attempts at pattern recognition in agriculture, blending empirical experience with mythic storytelling. You grin quietly. Imagine consulting the wind instead of a modern weather at probably fewer pop-up ads, though historians still debate whether these signs were genuinely predictive or simply colorful explanations for chance events. A final tale drifts through the night, of a hidden glen where autumn spirits would gather, exchanging tiny charms and whispering secrets of the forest to the most attentive villagers. You sense the calm enchantment settling over the audience, the laughter soft, the occasional playful teasing echoing lightly. Lesser-known fact, some villagers believed these gatherings ensured harmony between humans and nature, a quiet reminder of dependence and respect. Another soft joke. Modern hiking apps would label it GPS signal lost, totally mystical, but the effect remains magical. The night deepens, voices slow, and the crackling fire seems to sigh alongside the villagers. You feel a gentle drowsiness, your imagination stirred by playful legends, mysterious events, and charmingly odd facts. Each tale carries warmth, amusement, and the subtle weight of centuries-old wisdom. Lesser-known fact, recounting stories by firelight was thought to enhance memory and community bonding, a precursor to modern campfire therapy, if you will. You smile softly. The medieval version came with slightly more hay. As the final embers glow low, the elders lean back, nodding, and children curl closer, some nodding sleepily, some murmuring soft questions about the stories. You feel the rhythm of the evening, the interplay of curiosity, laughter, and quiet reflection. Historians still debate how much of the storytelling was purely entertainment versus ritual instruction, but the shared enchantment is palpable. Another light joke drifts gently. If this were a modern podcast, it would be called ASMR for medieval minds. You close your eyes briefly, listening to the soft crackle of dying embers and the whispering wind through the village trees. You feel the mysterious, playful, and slightly mischievous energy of centuries past swirl gently around you. A soft lullaby of folklore, wisdom, and communal wonder. You linger near the edge of the village as the last embers of the campfire fade into the night, leaving only the soft glow of stars overhead. The fields lie quiet, with dew settling gently on golden stalks, and the occasional rustle of nocturnal creatures stirring in the underbrush. Villagers cluster in small, intimate groups, speaking in hushed tones, sharing thoughts, gentle confessions, or playful secrets that the night itself seems to safeguard. You walk slowly among them, feeling the warmth of shared reflection and the unspoken bonds that have grown over a day filled with ritual, celebration, and laughter. Honestly, you think to yourself, surviving medieval village life is one thing, but surviving it without tripping over a stray chicken, you're lucky if you make it past dinner. The elder from last night's storytelling leans against a tree, stroking a long graying beard, and nods toward a group of children quietly sketching symbols in the dirt. You notice that even in the quiet, there's a rhythm to this reflection, almost meditative pause in the usual clamor of daily life. Lesser-known fact: villagers often believed that these late-night conversations helped settle disputes, reinforce communal bonds, and even subtly communicate intentions for the coming seasons. You smile at the thought. Imagine modern social media being replaced by whispers under starlight, no notifications, just softly shared secrets. Historians still debate whether this nocturnal ritual was primarily social, spiritual, or just a clever way to keep mischievous teens out of trouble. Nearby, a couple of farmers huddled together, swapping quiet jokes about whose hay wagon tipped over mid-harvest. Laughter barely audible but infectious. You can almost hear the gentle crackle of leaves underfoot as they shift, glancing at the constellations that have guided generations before them. Lesser-known fact: in some villages, observing stars at night was part storytelling, part astrology, helping determine planting schedules or festival timing, a mix of science, superstition, and communal entertainment. You chuckle softly. It's like a medieval Google Calendar, but with more folklore and fewer pop. Another gentle joke drifts. At least no one can accidentally set off a digital alarm at midnight. You wander toward a quiet pond reflecting the pale starlight. A small group of women sit nearby, leaning close to share whispered observations about the harvest, the upcoming winter preparations, or a secret recipe for spiced mead. Lesser-known fact: these nighttime gatherings were sometimes used to pass down medicinal knowledge or craft techniques, cloaked in gentle humor and storytelling to make lessons stick. You grin. Who knew that a chat by the pond could be more educational than a full day at the village school? Historians still debate how structured these sessions were versus purely spontaneous, but the effect on knowledge transfer and cohesion is unmistakable across the square. Young adults practice quiet hand-clapping rhythms and soft songs, echoing remnants of earlier dances, but toned down for the night. You notice the soft laughter, occasional playful teasing, and the gentle pride of showing off remembered steps. Lesser-known fact: these nighttime performances often helped solidify social bonds, subtly hinting at courtship or teamwork skills without the fanfare of daytime events. You smile quietly. Think of it as medieval speed dating meets ASMR. Another light joke: the most enthusiastic dancer might trip over a cobblestone. But hey, it's part of the charm. A hush falls when one elder rises to recite a short whispered poem about the harvest moon, its light bathing the village in silver, and the quiet gratitude of those who worked the fields. You inhale the crisp night air, sensing the calming effect of such words spoken with care and intention. Lesser-known fact: whispered verses were thought to carry energy into the land itself, symbolically nurturing crops and community alike. You grin softly. It's basically medieval poetry therapy. Historians still debate whether these rituals had practical agricultural significance or were purely symbolic, but the emotional resonance is obvious. You drift toward a small bridge crossing, a trickling stream, noticing pairs of villagers pausing to peer into the water, reflecting the moon and stars. They exchange whispered advice, teasing each other gently about harvest mishaps, or speculate on mysterious sounds from the distant forest. Lesser-known fact: these reflective pauses were believed to strengthen intuition and alertness for the following day's labor, turning casual observation into subtle training. Another soft joke floats through your thoughts. The stream probably knew more secrets than the village council ever did. Historians still debate whether such reflective walks were ritualistic or just a pleasant excuse to avoid cleaning the barn. Pair of children sneak up behind an elder, giggling quietly as they leave a tiny offering of autumn leaves on a stone in homage to some minor harvest sprite. You crouch nearby, savoring the soft intimacy of the scene. Lesser-known fact: small symbolic acts like this were widespread, designed to teach responsibility, humility, and respect for unseen forces. You smile quietly. Modern life rarely offers a chance to leave secret gifts for mythical creatures. Another light joke: if the sprite were real, it would probably have Yelp reviews by now. The night deepens further, and the village settles into a gentle hush. Only the soft breeze, distant hoot of an owl, and the occasional shuffle of a coat or cloak disturb the quiet. You notice a subtle weaving of shared stories, whispered plans, and gentle teasing across the villager network of bonds invisible to anyone passing through in daylight. Lesser-known fact: nighttime reflection was thought to harmonize interpersonal connections, subtly reinforcing trust and cohesion. You chuckle quietly, basically a medieval networking event, minus the awkward handshakes. Historians still debate whether the primary purpose was social harmony, spiritual reinforcement, or just pure, cozy relaxation. But the effect on the villagers is tangible. Finally, you rest against a tree trunk, closing your eyes for a moment. The moonlight filters through the leaves, and you feel a gentle sense of unity and quiet amusement, a calm connection that transcends the day's labor and games. The villagers around you murmur softly, sharing their last whispered confidences, drawing invisible threads between hearts and minds. Lesser-known fact: the very act of reflecting in the quiet night may have enhanced memory and emotional resilience, a subtle mental hygiene practice unknown to most. Another gentle joke: the one who snoozes first probably dreams of talking cows or mischievous sprites. You take a deep breath, absorbing the last delicate moments of the evening. The night hums with stories half told, laughter subdued, and bonds quietly strengthened. You feel a soft sense of gratitude, a gentle closing of a long day filled with harvest, ritual, storytelling, and subtle mischief. Historians still debate how intentional these nighttime reflections were, or if they evolved naturally. But their effect is serene, comforting, and enduring. As you lie back, gazing at the star-filled sky, the calm whispers of villagers and rustling of leaves lull you gently. You sense the lingering warmth of shared stories, secret jokes, and subtle enchantments, a soft web of community and quiet amusement surrounding you. Another light joke drifts through your mind: if these stars could text, they'd probably send emojis of winking moons. Night deepens into near silence. You feel the gentle closure of the day, the calm reflection on bonds, whispered secrets, and shared warmth. You drift into a contented quiet, the rhythm of the village, and the soft twinkle of distant stars inviting gentle rest, as laughter and soft murmurs fade into the night. The village square is quieting now, the lanterns' glow dimming as their flickering flames sink toward slumber. You linger among the soft shadows, feeling the gentle hush that settles after a day brimming with activity. Villagers exchange tender farewells, murmuring good night and sharing gentle pats on shoulders, soft handshakes, and the occasional cheeky wink. You note, with a small smile, that surviving the medieval harvest festival might have been hard work, but trying to leave without stepping on someone's toes or tripping over a stray pumpkin, definitely impossible. The laughter of earlier games still lingers faintly in the air, a soft echo carried by the cool autumn breeze. Children yawningly tug at the hands of parents, reluctant to leave the warmth of shared stories and whispered secrets. Lesser-known fact: in some villages, the closing moments of the festival were intentionally drawn out to ease the transition from exuberant activity to restful night, almost like a medieval wind-down playlist. You grin. The villagers might not have had Spotify, but they clearly understood the art of pacing social energy. Historians still debate whether these lingering farewells were ritualistic, symbolic, or simply a clever excuse to delay bedtime. You wander toward the edge of the square, noticing that even the stray animals seem to sense the gentle closing of the day, curling up near glowing embers or resting quietly in the straw. The scent of spiced mead and baked bread still hangs faintly in the air, comforting and familiar. Another gentle joke drifts through your mind. If you think about it, the mead might have been more responsible than the parents in coaxing children toward sleep. You chuckle softly as the last murmurs of the villagers blend with the whispering wind, and the stars above twinkle like approving witnesses. Walking slowly past empty tables adorned with autumn leaves and tiny, playful offerings, you reflect on the soft, intimate bonds formed throughout the day. Lesser-known fact: these small, symbolic gestures, the sharing of a slice of bread, a playful gift, or a whispered story, were thought to carry good fortune and community cohesion into the coming winter months. You smile. Modern team-building exercises could learn a thing or two from medieval village logic. Historians still debate whether the underlying purpose was social, symbolic, or just human nature enjoying camaraderie under starlight. The shadows grow longer, the square nearly deserted. You notice a pair of villagers lingering near a gentle stream, casting reflective glances into the rippling water, sharing the final secrets of the night. A faint, soft laugh escapes you, thinking about the day's whimsical chaos, tripping over hay, playful competitions, mischievous sprites in tales, and the quiet moments under the moon. Another light joke: if those sprites were still around, they'd probably be tucking children into bed with gentle nudges and soft giggles. The last lantern winks out, leaving a serene darkness punctuated only by the twinkling stars and distant owl calls. You feel the village exhale in unison, the rhythmic hush of satisfied hearts and contented minds. Lesser-known fact: the deliberate pacing of the festival's close, the gentle dimming of lights, and the soft whispers of farewell may have been an early form of communal sleep preparation, harmonizing circadian rhythms without any need for clocks. Historians still debate whether the precise timing held deeper significance, or if it naturally evolved from generations simply enjoying life's gentle transitions. As you find a soft patch of grass near the square, you recline, gazing at the tapestry of stars, feeling the gentle coolness of the night and the warmth of shared human connection. The scent of autumn, faint smoke from dying embers, and lingering spices mingle in a quiet symphony that calms your thoughts. Another playful joke surfaces. The village might not have had mattresses, but somehow everyone seems ready for a collective nap of legendary proportions. The night hums with soft reminiscences, laughter that has faded, whispered secrets tucked away, tiny offerings left for unseen spirits, and the gentle ebbing of energy from playful games, music, and dance. You let yourself sink fully into the moment, feeling the gentle pull of drowsiness as the village settles around you. Lesser-known fact: in some regions, elders intentionally prolonged the soothing sounds and storytelling into the night, almost like a medieval ASMR track designed to calm hearts and minds alike. Your eyes grow heavy, the cool night brushing against your skin like a soft lullaby, You sense the lingering presence of stories, songs, and shared human warmth that the day has sown quietly into the hearts of all present. Another gentle joke drifts through your mind. If anyone here dreams of mischievous harvest sprites tonight, at least they'll be friendly ones. The stars above shimmer as you inhale the night air deeply, letting it fill your lungs with calm serenity. All around, the village slumbers, each household tucked into comfort, laughter, and whispered secrets gently fading. The final tendrils of smoke rise from hearths, curling lazily toward the heavens, merging with the soft chorus of crickets, owls, and distant winds. You feel your body relax completely, the day's memories folding softly into your mind, the warmth of communal celebration lingering like a gentle glow. Each heartbeat syncs with the soft rhythm of night, the gentle ebb of the village's nocturnal energy, and the quiet promise of dreams. Another light joke flutters. Even if your dreams include runaway pumpkins, at least they're not carrying deadlines or emails down now. As your awareness drifts toward gentle sleep, let the calmness of the village, the twinkling stars, and the soft residual warmth of the harvest festival cradle you. Feel your thoughts slow, your muscles relax, and your imagination wander gently among the quiet lanes, whispering streams, and serene fields. The gentle hum of nocturnal life becomes a soft melody, easing you toward restful dreams. Breathe slowly, deeply. Allow the soft murmur of the village, the fading sense of autumn, and the lingering magic of stories, laughter, and playful mischief to settle your mind completely. Know that you are safe, embraced by the rhythm of a timeless night, and that tomorrow the village will awaken with the same gentle wonder while you rest fully now. End of script. Sweet dreams.